I know that times are tough right now, but I also know that even in the toughest times, there's opportunity out there. You just need to find it. So consider this your roadmap to navigating your career through this crisis and towards opportunity, especially because I've been in your shoes. For example, I was in grad school during the Great Recession, and so when I went to work at LinkedIn, I saw firsthand that even in the midst of challenge, savvy job seekers were able to rise above, and they did so by focusing on three principles. The first principle is that you've got to separate the macro from the micro. In other words, the overall labor market, which is full of depressing headlines about layoffs, just feels overwhelming and is impossible to navigate. Whereas an individual hire in that market is still just a simple process, a step-by-step procedure that every hiring manager and recruiter go through, no matter how chaotic the overall market is. And that is so much easier to grapple with. Which leads me to our second core principle: focus on what you can control. Because there really are two kinds of job seekers. There's the unsuccessful type with an external locus of control, who just feels completely powerless when times are tough. And that's because they focus on that big picture and they feel unable to control their fates. Whereas the successful job seeker, the one with an internal locus of control, focuses only on what they can do to shape their destiny. Because even if the overall market is outside their control, there are still very discrete steps they can take today to vastly increase their odds. And that brings me to our third principle, which is know what matters. Yes, things are changing at each stage of the hiring process, from an increase in applications to a decrease in offers, but instead of being paralyzed by those changes, just focus on the few things that now matter as a result, whether that's working harder to stand out or identifying the industries that are still growing. And that's exactly what I'm going to focus on over the next 4 steps. Now, the first step is starting with focus. That's because that's where recruiters always start. In other words, no recruiter is looking to hire a generic job seeker, but instead a specific product manager, an accountant, a data analyst. So if you're feeling a little lost, check out this hack with ChatGPT. As you can see, by providing the specific skills you bring to the table, you can start to get a strong sense of what else is possible just by connecting where you've been to where you can go next. All right, that's step 1. So step 2 is to focus on what actually works. Because it's not enough just to apply for a bunch of jobs if every job has 1,000 applicants. Instead, if you look at the data, you'll notice that there are 2 strategies that are disproportionately successful in standing out. The first one is that getting a referral gives you a 16x advantage over candidates who've applied via job board. And then number 2, having an agency introduce you to the hiring manager gives you a 27x advantage over those traditional candidates. So to put it another way, referrals and agencies account for less than 10% of all applications, but a majority of all the actual hires. Which means that you absolutely must focus your efforts on leveraging relationships if you want to rise above the crowd. And that means you should start by tapping your existing relationships to win referrals today. Now, chances are you already know someone inside lots of organizations that are hiring. So the next time you do a job search on LinkedIn, just search for employers in your network, as you can see here on the screen. This will filter the results by firms where you know someone on the inside, and then LinkedIn will show you exactly who you know so you can reach out for a referral. In other words, 5 minutes of work, but a 16x boost in your odds. And then, to really increase your chances, be sure to build new relationships directly with hiring managers. Because while talent agencies typically only work with highly experienced and demand candidates, you can actually be your own agent just by searching on LinkedIn. All you have to do is add the phrase "I'm hiring" to your search to find hiring managers who are raising their hands and asking for great talent. And so by reaching out directly, you can make your case straight to the person who makes that final decision, which will give you a massive advantage over the many candidates who never even make it past the recruiter. Okay, just to recap, there are 4 key things that matter, starting with finding your focus. And then, once you have a clear North Star, keep your eyes on the prize, the few things that actually work for job searchers in both good times and bad, which means you should be highly focused on getting referrals, since it gives you that huge boost, as well as connecting with the exact people who can change the course of your careers. And then, once you have that clarity and that control guiding your career, you're going to be unstoppable no matter what the world throws at you next. Here is wishing you tremendous success and all that comes next.